I'm gonna.
Do I hear like an old-fashioned grandfather clock or something
Me
back
too.
there?
I
That's
was like trying
awesome.
to get it. I was like, come on, come on. Yeah, Henry inherited it. I I appreciate the nostalgia. I hate it when I'm recording because it goes off every 15 minutes. And so I'll be recording and
15.
I'm like, yeah,
That
it'll
seems like a
like
lot.
ding. And then on the hour, it does however many the hour. So it's like miserable when I'm coding. I mean, not coding, recording. Otherwise, I don't hear it. It's funny. I don't hear it until I record, and then I'm very aware of it.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
I gotta pull up our list of topics. See who's it's some good ones today. Good starting on topic.
I love it when it's like,
I
"Oh, that
put
was
all
a
the
good
fun
choice."
stuff first.
Well, you wanna start with the fun stuff and do it backwards?
Yeah, but are we gonna do the
Yeah,
intro?
I'll
We're gonna
start
do the
it.
whole
I'll
thing?
start it.
All
Yep, yep. And if you're in the chat, just say hi. It's fun to know that we're not
right.
that other people are listening. Okay, there it is. Okay. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Switch 2, uh, treadmills for your desk, accessibility, specifically with voiceover testing, and Jira processing. So, we got some fun stuff in store.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compress.
Sweet. Hello, my name is Amy Dutton. I am a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team.
Hey, y'all. My name is Brad Garapi, and I'm a senior systems engineer at Cloudflare.
The long titles. I love it.
Yeah, I will say though, I shipped my first big feature at Cloudflare last week.
Woohoo! That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
We redesigned the entire side navigation, which was awesome. I contributed a ton of code to that, and it's live internally behind a feature flag, and we'll be releasing externally soon. Um,
Awesome.
Basically, like it compresses it down a lot. You know what I mean? Like we had a
Yeah.
million different things in there. It simplifies it some.
Yeah. I was digging this morning for my secrets. I also
There you go.
noticed that you have a new feature for sharing secrets across multiple projects. That's kind of cool.
Oh, Dewey, that's awesome.
Mhm. It had a
Yeah, and
little new badge next to it.
I was actually in, Cloudflare just the other day migrating our PTO, our parent teacher organization domain from GoDaddy over to Cloudflare.
Mm,
It's so much cheaper, and Cloudflare obviously does everything better with, like, redirect rules and things like that. I'm able to just, like, do whatever I want anytime a URL is hit, essentially, and it cut the
that's
price,
awesome.
like, more than 50% off.
That's crazy. I only have one domain left at GoDaddy, and it's more of just like to help keep that account open, which I don't even
Sure.
know why it matters. But it's funny that you're talking about the school PTO stuff. So my son started middle school yesterday. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. But also just like crazy all the things that he can be involved in now.
Really?
Also the fees. But it's like everything
Oh,
has a fee. Ugh. But, one of the things that he's interested in is their STEM club, and apparently it's really active, and so I've thought about asking them, like, what I know they, like, fly drones and, like, program robots and things like that, but I've thought about
yeah.
asking, like, "Do you do any software engineering? Like, is there a place where I can help out with that and volunteer?" So, I don't know,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, our elementary school actually has a girls who code program starting in, like, 3rd grade, and so I feel like
What?
my daughter might be interested in just, like, being on computers more, and so it could be a really good spot to just, like, help out, get her interested. So, a lot of opportunities coming up.
Yeah. I went and met, with our elementary school last year to see if I could help out, and what's interesting is the librarian handles all that, and they're already doing a ton of stuff just to teach the kids different topics, and so it wasn't very clear, like, where I could plug in or, what
Yeah.
I could do to help. So, anyways, I didn't end up doing anything, but, one of my daughters ended up being in typing club, which I was like, "They need to, like, make this a full-on class," but,
Oh, for
she's
sure.
she's learning how to do that. I just know, like, so many people, just hunt and peck, and you can get pretty good at it, but if you really want to talk about 10x your development, that's probably one of the best life skills I've ever learned is the touch typing, don't look type thing.
It's weird though, because I feel like maybe all those classes like computer literacy and things like that were only relevant as computers were a new thing. Now,
Mm,
maybe that kids are just growing up with it. Like, my kids know how to use a phone already, and we never give them a phone. I'm like, "How do you know how to
yeah.
do this so intuitively?" Like, they don't have
Mm.
tablets, they don't have cell phones, so it's just like, well, that's how I interact with this thing. Whereas, you know, I guess, what is it, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the computers were, like, just coming out, and you had to teach people the new way to do things, which is like
Sure.
point and click and a keyboard, so, while I agree those skills are essential, I feel like they might just be baked into growing up in, 2020, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think the difference is, like, can you type just enough to get by? And, like, you're looking at your hands and that kind of thing versus, like, is it a skill that you're gonna be intentional about? But I
Yeah.
will say, in terms of the phone, the thing that throws my kids off that has taken some actual teaching is how to, like, use the phone when you're making a phone call because it could either be voice, it
Yeah.
could be speaker, it could be FaceTime, and so, a lot of times it's funny when they're, like, playing phone, they're walking around holding it out in front of their face,
Yes.
and it instead of, like, holding it up to their ear, so, like, I'll have to tell them, "No, you have to hold it up to your ear," or, "You have to go in and hit speaker if you're not gonna hold it up to your face."
Yeah. I do the same thing with my parents.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. There was
Um,
Yeah, but it's been fun just to, like, see them get excited about things, especially since this is something that I'm excited about, and so being able to
yeah.
kinda share those passions with them. Oh, I was afraid that was gonna happen. I'm gonna
Oh,
switch
no, your
cameras.
video dropped, yeah. Um, okay, well, staying kind of on the subject of kids, I took my kids golfing for the first time over the weekend,
You
Topgolf.
did!
Yeah, and I mean, it was all over the place, but by the end of it, they were hitting the ball, like, fairly regularly, but their favorite thing that kept them engaged the whole time was, like, the games. Angry Birds,
Mm,
Sonic,
mhm.
Fantastic Four, whatever, they could just hit the ball and then go look at the screen to be like, "What happened?" And that
Yeah.
kept them going, kept them interested in it all.
I think that's what got my son Isaac interested in golf, um, because he tried out for the golf team the other week, and fortunately, they didn't have any cuts. He made the team, which is
Nice.
good. But, that's been fun just, like, kind of learning and a new sport, uh, and he's excited, I think, just to be a part of a team. Okay, I'm gonna try my phone. Let's see if this works.
Continuity Cam, one of Apple's
It's not.
great features that I never use.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. It's not doesn't look like it's working. It's funny, it doesn't wanna recognize my webcam.
I had
So
a
weird.
kind of major freak out because I was going on, Taylor Desson's guidance counselor show, and that morning, for the second time, my Sony threw this error where it was like, "Camera error, power off and power back on," and, I mean, it never fixed itself until, like, way later, freaked out, I had to, like, switch to my backup camera, and, like, it always happens right before recording, so I think,
I know,
it's
right?
time that I buy a new camera at this point. I got the old A6000, it's probably just time to upgrade to whatever the latest mirrorless, Sony is.
Oh, so you're gonna go all in on Sony? Or I guess if
Always
you already
always
have one,
have been
maybe you are.
Sony, yeah, and I've got lenses that work for this, like, expensive lenses that work for this, so I don't wanna mess with it.
I'm gonna swap the battery out on my DSLR and see if that fixes it. don't know why. It could be, you know what? I'm still hanging on to Chrome. I mean, not Chrome, Arc.
Uh,
That might be part of it too. Okay, I was trying to avoid it. I'm gonna switch over to Chrome. Give me just a
okay.
second.
I have not done the and she's gone. I have not done the ARC thing for a long time. I did it for just a brief bit, and then I went back to Chrome for development and Safari for personal browsing. Safari's integrations, I just think, are better than anything else when you're using the Apple ecosystem, and then Chrome has the best dev tools. I wish, they could just do something better where you could almost plug and play your dev tools into the browser so that you can have the best of both worlds. That would be the way to go. If y'all are in the chat, please feel free to drop some questions. I guess we're just taking a little bit to warm up into the show today. Let us know what's going on this week for y'all at work, or if you want to hear anything specific that you want us to talk about in this episode. We'll get to the Switch stuff here soon, which I'm sure some of y'all will like.
So strange. It's not
And
gonna
she's back.
it's not gonna cooperate. One of those days. It's all good. Okay, well, let's talk about the Switch 2.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to snag one before you. Um, we just randomly stopped at a GameStop one day, and it was like right after Donkey Kong Bonanza came out, and they said we got a whole second round of Switch 2s. So we picked everything up that day and had a blast. But
That's
the kids
awesome.
were in the car. There was no special surprise or anything. But I know that you had a really interesting way that you presented it to the kids.
Yeah, so Henry and I, the kids were at my parents, and we were sitting there eating dinner, just the two of us. And he was like, "What should we do tonight?" And I was like, "Oh man, let's see if we can find a Switch 2." And unfortunately, there weren't any near us, but you could order one online through Best Buy. I guess they had a shipment coming in. And so we ordered it online, had it shipped to our house. So it was a couple days later. It actually came early, which was awesome. And then Henry put all this stuff in this like canvas tote bag, and we sat the kids down, and we said, we have something really serious we need to talk to you guys about. Goodness, it was so hard to keep a straight face, and just I was like looking sad, and they're like, "Oh no." And they told me later, they're like, "Mom, you're such a good actress. We had no idea." And I was like, "That's right." But Henry was like, "So I was cleaning up upstairs and I found something very surprising. Whose ever this is needs to come claim it now." And of course, he sounded a little bit more stern than I did. And the kids are just like freaking out. "It's not mine. It's not mine." And we're like, "You don't even know what it is." Like, so they
You're
all
right,
go
it's
over
not
to the
yours, it's ours.
they go over to the bag and look in, and then they start flipping out. So yeah, it was a fun surprise. Isaac is definitely, I mean, he's more of the gamer than the girls game, but not quite as much as Isaac. I mean, he's into all the things. And so we've unlocked everything, almost everything on Mario Kart. I think there's still a few
Wow.
characters, but he just went crazy trying to unlock everything. And then he has almost beat Donkey Kong. He still has the final boss. So
Crazy.
I have only played like 1 or 2 rounds of Mario Kart, but we also ended up doing the online subscription
Yeah.
where you can play all the old stuff, and so he's had a lot of fun going back through all those games. And because you can do, I mean, everything, GameCube, Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, original Nintendo, all the things.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Just the other day, we were having a conversation with the kids about like, yeah, games didn't used to be like this, and it dawned on us, Nintendo Switch Online has this, and so I need to
Oh,
jump
yeah.
on that subscription,
Yeah.
partly because of that, and partly because of the save game data goes to the cloud. And so now that I
Mhm.
have 2 Switches, the old one and the new one, it'd be really helpful to just be able to transfer that data back and forth, you know, in the cloud and just load the saves
Sure.
anywhere.
Yeah. We played Dr. Mario, and I, like, creamed him, and I was like, "That's right." But, what's funny is we have some friends, actually, the guy is Henry's coworker, and they were at an event where they were doing this Mario Kart competition. And the main competition was with the Switch. I think it was a Switch 1 maybe. But then they had like a side competition that was a Nintendo 64. But our friend did not know what system it was, and Henry and I were asking him all these questions, and he was like, "I don't know, it's, like, really pixelated and really old." And we were like, "Well, what did the controller look like?" And he's like, "I don't know, it was, like, 3 prongs." And
Yep,
like,
yep.
"That's the Nintendo 64. That's our childhood." But it was like, he was roasting it, being like, "Oh, it's so pixelated and terrible, the technology is
Yeah.
awful." And I was like, you kidding me? That's what we grew up on."
And, what do you think about the Switch 2 being, like, basically the same thing as the Switch 1? Were you wanting something, like, really different?
Uh, I don't know what I mean, you just get to the point sometimes with the consoles, like, the hardware can only go, like, so far, I feel like, and a lot more of the investment, like, upgrades and things like that are gonna be with games, and you get to the point where, like, the newer games aren't supported on the old models, so you almost have to, upgrade if you want to
Yep,
stay current. That
yep.
sounds so privileged saying all that, but, the one thing that actually I don't know if you know you can do this, you can turn the controller sideways. So it's, like, on its end and use it as a mouse.
Yeah,
Um,
but I haven't used
so
it in any
cool that you
games or
can
anything.
Yeah, I was trying to think why Isaac pulled up, like, a Mario Paint thing, and he could use the controller more
Oh.
as a mouse than trying to use the controller. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it is what it is.
I really loved the Switch 1's, like, flexibility and portability. That's what sold me on it. Like, you can
Mhm,
play it on an airplane, you can play it on your TV, you can play it in bed, like, anywhere, and it's very flexible, and, like, I'm happy that the Switch 2 actually just kinda stayed the same form factor. To
mhm,
be honest, though, it's a little big if you ask me. It's not
mhm.
as portable, and that's kinda, like, why I really liked it because it was good as a portable device. I don't need a bigger screen, I just need it to feel light and small and easy to carry around. Um,
Yeah.
but at least,
It
now it's more powerful and stuff, but I find myself only playing on the TV at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing that we ended up doing was and we didn't do this for the Switch 1, was we bought a little plastic holder. So it gives you grips on the side to be able to hold
Yeah.
it better, and that makes a big difference just in terms of comfort and portability. But at least the one that we got, you have to take that off in order to charge it, so it's a little cumbersome, not quite
Mm,
as travel friendly. The other thing that was interesting was we bought a second set of Joy-Cons just because we want everybody to be able to play Mario Kart, and
yep.
there's not a great way to charge the extra Joy-Cons. So with the Switch 1, we have this little charging dock that's, like, officially Nintendo sold. You can buy something similar, but all of that's only third party. So we were interested in only buying, like, a Nintendo charger, and like I said, they don't have it, but kind of as a workaround, you can get a charging controller that looks like the one provided, but it has a USB
Yeah.
that will connect to the front. And so we ended up getting that because then you can put the controllers in and charge it through the dock. But it was like, that's kind of weird that they don't have a great solution for that. And you almost have to rely on third party stuff.
Yeah, I feel like they were slow rolling out with accessories this time around. They put all their effort
Mhm,
into the camera, which I'm not interested in.
mhm.
But
Yeah, we
we've
haven't
just been
done that.
using all of our Switch 1 controllers. Our 8-bit Geo controllers work great. Just do a
Oh,
little
I didn't realize
firmware
that.
update, and then they're Switch compatible, Switch 2 compatible.
What? Well, I'm glad we spent that money. I didn't even
Yeah,
know you
yeah, I
could
did
do
buy the
that.
new Pro controller though,
Mm,
and that's
yeah.
really good. It's a good upgrade.
Okay. Sweet. Well, let's talk about, so now that we talked about being lazy and playing video games, let's talk about being active and desk treadmills.
Yeah, me and, my wife, Gabby, spent a lot of effort, like, getting, physically fit for this 10-year anniversary beach trip we had, and the biggest thing we did, the biggest change we made was just walking for, like, 30 to 45 minutes a day, and we would go outside and walk, and it was great. But
Mhm,
now coming back from the trip, I was like, I loved that process so much. That's how you do weight loss when it comes to, like, losing body fat
mm,
and stuff. I'm like, I wanna keep this trend up. I sit at a desk all day. And so
mhm.
I just went for the under desk treadmill just to be moving, and I've been using it a lot.
Really?
Yeah, here's the controller, but it also has an app, which the app is pretty good. But I got this brand called Urivo, and it kind of matches my office. It's got like wood looking things on the side. And the app will like connect to Apple Fitness and like log all your steps and calories
Oh,
and
wow.
exercise time. But I spend like an hour or more on it a day. And
Really?
I'm going at like a 1.0 pace, anywhere
Yeah,
between like zero point 0.6 and 1.0. Um, it's awesome. Now, I don't know, it's not the same as like walking fast outside because my normal walking pace is probably like a 3.0 speed. So there's like very reduced, but
sure.
it gets you up and moving, which is a lot more than sitting down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I have not ventured into the treadmill space. I had some coworkers when I was at Zeal that had desk treadmills, and it was
Hmm.
always funny because 'cause they'd, just be swaying back and forth during meetings and things like that, but I know for them, it made a huge difference, and they were walking, like, I don't know, probably 5 to maybe even 10 miles a day on the treadmill, but they were, like, walking, I think, almost all day, and they might walk faster, I'm kind of guessing, might walk faster if it's a meeting versus if you're actually trying to code and, like, use the keyboard and mouse. I feel like you need a little bit more precision when you're trying to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll go a little faster during meetings or but I find if I'm walking fast and talking, I'm just like, like you can't get all your words out.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's funny.
I feel like you get your standing desk set right and you pull your keyboard a little closer, like it's not that bad to work and walk at the same
Mhm.
time.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's also talk about accessibility. So I know you've been doing a lot of stuff with VoiceOver.
Yeah. So going back to that navigation that we built, um, one of like the last tickets that we had was just I was kind of like trying to write wrap up tickets. Like we need to review dark mode and we need to review accessibility and we need to review like keyboard navigation, all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And keyboard navigation is something I'm familiar with. The tab index attribute has a lot to do with like if it's selectable or where it appears. But I'd never done much with voiceover. And when it came down to voiceover, I always just thought, well, put ARIA label on stuff and that will like handle what it reads out as. But it turns out there's like a lot more to it as far as tools go and a lot more to it as far as what you should do in order to get good voiceover. So, okay, all the things I know. First and foremost, the best thing to do for accessibility generally is use the right HTML elements. And I always knew this in the back of my head, but I didn't quite know why. Because people always say, if you use a button as a button and a link as a link instead of a div for everything, it's going to be better for accessibility. Okay, but here's why. Because if you use a button, it will read out as a button. The voiceover will say, button, clickable, or whatnot. You're hovered over this, press space to click. Like it will tell the user that it's like interactable. Or if it's on a list, it'll say unordered list, and you can put a title on the list of animals with 26 items, and it will read all of it out if you just use the right HTML. So that was like honestly step one. It was like going through our HTML structures and changing things to be list items, unordered lists,
Mm.
anchor tags, and buttons. And like that improved our not only our like tab navigation, but also our voiceover so much.
And I think
And then go ahead.
one thing I get flagged for sometimes with HTML, like when I'm just doing those, like light score stuff where it'll,
Yep.
tell you or make recommendations, is that you have to have your headings in order. Because sometimes it's tempting to be like, I have an H2 that's styled this way. It might not be the most, like, it might not be an H2 in terms of hierarchy, but it's a H2 in terms of style. And so you also have to be careful there because you want them to be in order. You want it to be H1, H2, H3 instead of jumping around and being like H3, H1, H2. You have to have all that
Yeah.
stuff in order.
Yeah. And there's also these things called landmarks, which I learned about actually. Um, So those HTML tags that they're just divs, but they mean something more, like header, footer, aside,
Mhm.
nav.
Yep.
Those are really just divs, but they also act as landmarks on the page. And so you can press a keyboard shortcut, and I'm pretty sure it's Command Option U or Control Option U, and it brings up this menu of landmarks on your page. And so if a visually impaired user or somebody using like a screen reader wants to just quickly jump to like a large section of the page, like I don't care about the top bar, I don't care about the bottom bar, bring me to the main
Mhm.
content, bring me to the nav. You can bring up that menu, press the arrows to go up and down, and it'll say navigation, header, footer, and you can just jump right there and then go into whatever you want to there. And they do the same thing for that little rotary menu, like, whatever it is, Command Option U. It not only lists the landmarks, but it can list all the buttons on the page, all the links on the page, all the headings on the page. So you can kind of like navigate through the page more efficiently depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for the
Mm.
main call to action button, you can like bring up the rotary menu for buttons, tab through a couple till you find like the big one that says sign up or buy now or whatever.
Mhm.
And again, that all just comes from using the right HTML elements to get them into that list. There's no way, I don't think, that you can like opt an element into that list with some attribute. You just have to use the right element.
Oh, really? So, like,
Yeah,
even if
yeah.
you had a roll of button, an ARIA label of button, and all the things on a
I
div,
don't
you can't
I don't
convert it?
think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
Um, but somebody check me on that. Another thing I always thought was like if you're ever gonna put like an SVG on the page, you give it an ARIA label. And that's not always the best practice. A lot of times icons are just presentational and you don't want them to be read out in a screen reader. So for instance, our side nav now has like an icon with a section name that is a button that like expands and collapses sub items.
Mhm.
So initially I had ARIA labels on there because I thought it was the right thing to do. And it was just reading out like bookmark label, shortcuts, button, collapsed. And it's like you don't need the icon being read out. So in those cases, if you don't include the label, it'll our custom component has like just aria hidden equals true if you don't add the label. So, you can get those icons out of the accessibility tree.
That's cool. Now, are you using, like, DQ to test any of this stuff?
All the testing was done essentially manually by just tabbing
Okay.
around and using the different menus, and I was using Apple's VoiceOver tool.
Okay. Have you looked at DQ at all? Do you know what I'm talking
Like I've used the Axe Dev tools to run those
about? Okay.
audits before.
Okay.
Does DQ do like voiceover stuff as well?
I'm not super familiar with it. I just know that it's known for their accessibility tools. It's funny, I just
Yeah,
searched DQ menu, it brought up Dairy Queen. You gotta spell it right.
I think it's mostly, like, static accessibility audits of your produced HTML.
Mm,
But, yeah, I learned so much from doing that exercise, and, like, you'll be appalled if you go into, like,
mm,
your own website or somebody's website, and you just start trying to tab through with VoiceOver on, and it's just yelling at you all these words that just don't mean anything relevant to your experience. And when I got it cleaned up and I tabbed through and I'm like, "This is exactly what I want this to be," it felt so good, you know?
mm.
It would just be like, navigation, unordered list, account home, you know, uh, shortcuts, collapsed, press space to expand, expanded, and, like, it's amazing, and then you're just like, "This is how it should be," and
Yeah,
all of a
yeah,
sudden, like, it starts jumping out at you everywhere, once you've really run through it with a fine-tooth comb.
yeah. We have a couple of friends that are really huge advocates for accessibility. So if people are interested, Homer, I'm trying to think what his handle is. I'll include it in the show notes in the description, but he's based out of Atlanta. He's been to several conferences talking about accessibility. And our friend Todd Libby is also a
Mhm.
huge advocate of accessibility, and I'll include a link to their stuff as well. But one thing that Todd said in one of the talks that I heard him give was that, a lot of times this sounds so insensitive and I don't mean for it to be, but if you do not have a need to use accessibility, like you're just shoot, I'm trying to make sure I'm using the right words and being careful, but if you don't need like those accessibility things, you can see the website, you can click through all the things, you don't realize what a hindrance it is when those tools aren't available or they aren't programmed correctly. And Todd shared a story of a girl where her father needed different like keyboard accessibility things. I think he was visually impaired. And he told her that for every website that he went to that he didn't have those features, it was just a reminder that he wasn't wanted in the world. And I think that was
Mhm.
like so sad and heartbreaking. I know that's really changed my perspective of accessibility, that it really shouldn't be an afterthought of like, oh, I'm done. And if I have time, I'll go back in and add these things. It really should be from the beginning as you're structuring out your HTML and trying to think through the DOM. Like that should be a first class citizen, for lack of a better word, as you're trying to work through things. And I think the people that I've run into that are really advocates for accessibility, one of my I guess favorite things to ask them is, a lot of people that are advocates, they have somebody that's close to them and they're trying to make the
Mhm.
world better for them. And so I love hearing those stories of just how accessibility has impacted them personally.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned, like, it should be baked in from the beginning. I I almost feel like you need to bookend your projects with accessibility. So start with that strong
Mm,
HTML structure, develop your product. Inevitably, it will probably stray in negative ways, and then review at the end, right? That's how you, like, do the full cycle. Really what you need, and this is what I think Cloudflare could really use, is a better, like, component library that has accessibility baked in, and you're using the
mm,
right element for the right thing. If the component library makes it easy to, stick a button in there that's fully accessible, whatnot, or a button link, that's the best thing when people make button link
yeah.
components, because so many times you want a link that needs to look a certain way, and when they support that and it's accessible, like, you're just gonna get better quality, websites at the end of the day if you have components like that.
Yes, I'm curious if like I'm working on some component library stuff right now. What are things that you would think should be included? Obviously, ARIA labels and all that is really important, but are there other things that might not be quite as obvious?
I think if you have really, like, complex input components, like, if you want a nice looking date picker or a nice looking range slider or whatnot,
Yeah.
you have to define their roles properly, and so they're, like, just read out the way that they should be. And I think that's where it comes into it. It's like when you're building custom inputs or custom components that use
Sure.
inputs under the hood, it has to present itself exactly the same way as an input would.
Yeah. I know another piece is keyboard navigation when you're talking about drop downs where you can do
Mm,
autocomplete and it'll filter out your lists and trying to make selections all from your keyboard. What's interesting, I don't know if you saw this, but Adam Wathan has been working on um, a different set of primitives, all based on HTML and then I think just vanilla JavaScript, really focusing on the
yeah.
CSS so that it can be used across different frameworks and really, oh, I say across different frameworks, it can be framework agnostic. So he has examples where it's working in Rails or React or Svelte or whatever, but those will be offered as part of the Tailwind Plus package, which I thought, like, I just want to dig in to see what some of his thought process behind those components are and how he structured them.
Yeah, and even Ryan Florence lately has been on a UI kick. He, was doing, like, the multi-tiered menu selections where you do that weird
Mm.
triangle where, like, this is where your mouse is, and it's hovering over it, and you'd kinda draw a triangle to the next menu so that you don't hover outside of it and it disappears, you know what
Oh,
I mean?
yeah.
But
Yes.
I feel like I'm also wondering why we're reinventing some of this stuff. I thought React Aria did so much of this, or some of those Adobe libraries did so much of this, but I'm not sure why we're going back and doing it again. But I think that is all React. Maybe that's why we're trying to make it independent.
Well, some of the stuff that I've seen, because I went and looked at React Aria and all these other things, and it's like, yes, it offers it, but I also feel like it's a little bit of a black box. It's like, what is this really doing for you? I know it's supposed to help with accessibility, but in terms of styling, what am I doing? In terms of usability, what is really happening? And so I know for me, as I've been creating these components, that's been really helpful is going to the ARIA documentation and saying, okay, what are really the requirements here?
Mm.
Why do I have to have this label? What does it mean? And so that's been a good learning curve for me.
I heard those docs are dense and difficult to understand. A lot of the accessibility feedback comes down to like many things are inaccessible because this is a difficult spec to read. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so the biggest this is a cheat that I found in trying to kind of parse
Oh,
them
I already
was
know what you're gonna
I
say now.
oh, no, this is different.
Dude,
I bet this is
I was gonna
different.
say AI. You're gonna AI.
Well, that would have been a little bit of that, but I've been looking at it through Radix and through, like,
Yeah.
Base UI. So as they're
Okay.
creating these components, they're trying to make it all accessible, and so I think it's the Radix docs. It has, like, an under their feature set, it was, like, ARIA compliant, and then it
Uh,
links off to the documentation. So for all the buttons, it's like, these are all the ARIA attributes we've included, and so I've gone on a deep dive through something else to see,
uh,
okay, why are they including this? What's important? And yes, it is easier if you use AI to help break all that stuff down. But my hack has been looking at existing libraries to see, okay, how did you implement this?
cool. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like another wave of web dev is coming, and it ain't gonna be React. Like, I think the whole server component wave, and I know you differ here. I think the server component wave, like, just wasn't as big as we thought it was gonna be, but there's a
Mm-mm.
bigger one coming behind it of just like, do you remember how the web browser and CSS works? And, like, it's just gonna hit really hard, I think, when stuff like this Tailwind, what's the name of what's he calling it?
I don't know what he I
Elements,
guess they're
I
just
think?
primitives. Yeah, or
But when this
elements. Yeah,
drops,
maybe.
when Remix V3 drops, I just think, like, something else is gonna pop up where people go, "We might not need all this stuff anymore."
Mm.
I don't know.
Okay, so here's a hot take. And I'm like forming this hot take on the spot. So bear with
The
me.
best ones.
But what if this wave of primitives and focus on HTML is actually a byproduct of server components? Because when you think about it, when you have React server components, you are creating all this HTML that you're delivering directly to the browser. Like it's not having to parse the JavaScript, it's getting all of that DOM in the browser. And so there's could be maybe a more focus on the ARIA stuff, all the primitives, because that's the part that you're shipping to the browser with server components. You can render out that element instead of trying to do everything client side with React.
Yeah, maybe so, because and this is where I'm fuzziest about RSC is because I'm
Mhm.
like, it's not just HTML, but it is part of the payload is static HTML.
Yeah.
And I'm using
Yeah.
AI to, like, tell me exactly what's in the RSC payload right now. So to enumerate this, it's rendered
Yeah.
HTML, the stuff that can be rendered on the server,
Mhm.
a client component placeholder, and then the
Mhm.
associated client component JavaScript,
Yep.
and then their props and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting, because it is a
Mhm.
little bit of both. Yeah.
Yep. And I will throw this little tidbit out here that most people, I don't think fully wrap their minds around is that when you're dealing with RSC and you have a client component, it is also rendered on the server. Because I wanted to
Mhm.
point out, you said a client component placeholder. It has the placeholder, but it can also be hydrated. So it will render first on the server, and then all the interactivity stuff, it'll be rendered again in the browser. So I'm not sure that people understand that entirely. They just think like, oh, there's a hole here. It is a hole, but the first paint does happen on the server.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, and that's why it didn't strict mode start this where they rendered it twice or whatever?
I'm not sure,
Something
maybe.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, another wave is coming, and, I don't think it's here yet, but it's coming.
We so the last time we recorded, we talked a little bit about the component library that I've been working on and some of the new React features that I say new just because they were new to me. But one thing that I don't think we talked about that my mind has just been blown by lately is class variance authority. Have you looked at the CVA library at all?
Not at all.
So if you do any work with ShadCN, a lot of their stuff is all with class variants. And so I had kind of looked at it a little bit as I was trying to style some of the Shad components and tweak them, customize them, and things like that. But as I've been trying to work on my own components, I'm like, okay, well, what are these libraries that they're using and why are they important? And the class variants authority library, so you'll see it as CVA, is amazing. So when you are working with this particular library, you define in the top, like almost like a top block where you have the classes that you want to, it works really well with Tailwind. So you'll have all the class names that you want to apply by default, and then you'll have an object of variance. And so these are all the different things you could have. So for a button, you could have solid, you could have destructive, you could have ghost, which just means it doesn't have maybe a background until you hover on it. You could have outline, all these different things. And then you can also define a default variant that will pull in those class names by default. And so then you just pass in a prop and then you'll send it over to the class variance authority function and it'll help assemble or merge the right properties together. Um, you can also do some really cool things where you say, if I've applied, say, a class of solid and a class of primary, then apply these other classes. And so you can get these really neat combinations. And so when you're working with a component library, it makes it really easy to assemble all those pieces. The other thing that's really nice about it is that it is TypeScript happy or safe. And so I can say for my variant prop that I'm passing into my component, I want to reference a class variant authority variant. And so that means that I don't have to list out all the different options as a prop, like primary, secondary, destructive, whatever. I can just say, hey, this is a class variance authority prop, and it will automatically infer that based on the variants that I've listed in the function.
This looks awesome. This solves a lot of, like, the problems that you have with using class names or something, right? Where you have to kind
Mhm.
of have an object and you're just conditionally on the fly kind of being like, "If this, then that," to
Yes,
get
yes.
your final
Exactly.
classes. So this is,
Yes,
like,
100%.
setting this up front. Um,
Yep.
I'm looking at some of the examples here, and so when you're calling these functions, this CVA or CX or whatever
Mhm.
you define the function name to be, and you say, "Here's the element and here are the variants." How do you use this? Is the output of this function a string of CSS class names?
Yeah, I mean, I say that, it's like Tailwind. It's gonna combine
Yeah,
all the Tailwind props or, class names for you, and
yeah,
typically, it's also used with, I think it's CLSX, which is
yeah,
like the class names.
that's the
Yep, it
underlying,
that's
like, um, "If this is true, then add this class name," type
right, but
thing.
the advantage to using those explicitly though, it might be underlying CVA, but you also can use that in addition to, is that you can use like Tailwind merge. And the advantage there is if you have like a component where you're like, okay, I defined all these like primary CTA, what up solid, all these things. But then maybe I want to pass in a prop of class names where I can just modify a few things instead of baking that into the component. You can
Yeah,
pass in a class name prop, but it will merge that properly with all these other classes and give
right,
preference to the class name that you passed in so that it'll override if it needs to whatever's already there.
right, you can break out of the design system, let's say, variants if you need to.
Right.
Okay, and I see the usage. It's like class name equals, and you call a function from your
Yep.
class variance authority, which takes some arguments, and that function outputs a CSS just a
That's
string
right.
of class names. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
cool. And
It's
this is all
such a cool
reactive in
library.
React. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a cool library when you start actually trying to use it and work with it. I just kind of been like, "Oh, I think I know what I'm doing when I'm doing ShadCN," or like, "I'm gonna modify this." But, like, once you actually break it down and understand what's happening under the hood, it's such a great library.
Yeah, and I can see this being just really helpful for that base layer of CSS component library stuff.
Yep,
Outside of that, I think you need to have a system for this. It feels like a little bit
yep,
overkill if you're just like, I'm throwing CSS on stuff, but this is really about variance. Like this component
yes.
under these
If you're
circumstances produces this style.
right, if you're working on a design system. And so I have decided made an executive decision. If you are trying to be a design engineer or work with design systems, if you're new to the industry, whatever you're trying to break in, go build your own component library. I know that sounds intense,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I've done front end for 20 years and this whole process has uncovered new things for me in the process that you might not normally know if you're using somebody else's given components. And so being able to look at, say, class variants and how that works. Or last week, we talked a little bit about cloning React components or just different structures and patterns for building React components. It's pretty cool, all the stuff that you learn in the process of building your own library.
yeah, absolutely. And like everything, it just goes without saying, is you have to do it to get it. You have to encounter
Mhm.
the problems and the solutions before it bakes into your head like, now I see this. Because otherwise it's too
Yes,
easy to write
exactly.
off like libraries or, the ways people solve problems if you don't have the same problem.
That's right. Yeah. Cool. We had one more topic, right?
A little bit of Jira.
Oh, yeah.
I've
That was forgettable for me.
I yeah, and this is
Joking,
crazy, right?
joking.
I'm joining a new team, right? I'm seeing how the processes work, and I'm trying to kind of I've been at enough companies now to kinda know what works and what doesn't, or what feels good and what doesn't, and how developers generally respond, and so, in my head, I think I have the perfect system of, like, managing work, and everybody's different at the end of the day, but, I really feel like the folks at Cloudflare are like, vibing with what I'm putting out there, and I think I'm helping to take some off of my manager's plate to be like, "Hey, just give me admin access. I'll, like, make this a little bit better, and, you know, people will complain less about the whole situation." And,
Mhm.
very slowly, I'm just kind of turning this into, like, a process that I think is working, and it's low friction, and it's lightweight, and I will say this, it's not Scrum, it's not Agile, it's not any of that.
Okay.
I think my favorite thing is to just use the Jira board to see to do, blocked, in
Mm.
progress, in review, done. And you have
Yeah.
the little dots on there that shows how long it's been in that state. And so at a glance, you can see who's doing what and what is stuck and where is it stuck.
Yeah.
And I think that is the value of Jira. The rest of it, it can
Mm.
all go away. I don't care about burn down charts. I don't care about velocity. It's going to take as long as it takes to get done. Just
Right.
it's for like this looking at a thing and visually being able to tell, are we progressing or are we stuck somewhere?
Mhm. Well, I like that. When I was at Zeal, we did Agile, and because we're a consultancy, we worked with a bunch of different companies that had implemented it, different flavors. Some companies would lean more towards Scrum than Agile. But the benefit was I saw it implemented in all different shapes and sizes. But one of the pushbacks that we received with Agile for any company, like if they didn't have a process and we're coming in as consultants and saying, well, this is the process, is that with Agile, you have so many meetings to go around the ceremonies. So let me kind of explain what I'm talking about. You might have a stand up where that could go for 15 minutes, or if you have other teams that just like to talk, it can go longer. And then, so that's every day. You also have retros at the end of the week where you're recapping everything. You could have a planning meeting where it's like the tech lead and the project manager and the design lead will all meet and prep stories. But then you have a pointing meeting where everybody steps in and like tries to point things or plan out how many tickets they can take in a particular sprint. So already that's like, let's see, 8 meetings that I've talked about. Some are daily, some are once a week, twice a week, depending on what your sprint cycle is. And so the nice thing about what you're saying is like at the end of the day, you just need to get the work done. And
Yeah.
what information do you need to get the work done? That's really all you need. Because like you
I
said, we're terrible at estimating. And
yeah.
so it's just like, just do the work.
I think most of those meetings, a lot of those meetings you named are pointless. Story points, BS. Like I think your team should set a standard of like when you have a ticket, we assume this ticket will take like 2 to 3 days tops. And if it's bigger than that, break it down. The idea of pointing tickets is dumb if you ask me, because who's gonna point a ticket that takes 2 weeks? Nobody's gonna work on that. Break it down. That means you
Mhm.
haven't done the work to decompose this. Every ticket should be kind of in and out 2 to 3 days. And if you set that expectation, kinda know the pace at which work is done, and if you look at big tickets, it's an epic, right? That's the thing. If it
Yeah.
takes many things to get something done, then it's an epic, and you put tickets under there, and you move them each across the board. The pointing is pointless. Retros, I still think are valuable, but you're not looking at a sprint
Yeah.
board for that. You're just a team talking about what's good, what's bad, what's hard, where your challenges are. And I think every 2 weeks is perfect for that. An
Mhm.
hour, because otherwise, I think employees
You
don't
have to
feel
time
like
box
they
it.
have a way to give feedback, right? That you
Yes,
need to be able
agreed.
to feel like you can talk to your manager or your project manager and be like, "My job is hard because of this."
Mhm.
So that's a good forum for that. And then the only other meeting that I think is really useful is a backlog grooming meeting. Like the notion of 2-week sprints are pointless. You just keep doing the work, but you
Yeah.
have to somehow prepare that work. And so
Yep.
I think the right cadence is every 2 weeks, but it doesn't mean it's a sprint. It's just every 2 weeks, your leads, your tech leads, your PM, and your EM, your product manager, engineering manager, sit down and just say, what is coming up next? And even if you just define an epic and say, okay, tech leads, continue to break that down. But you have to have essentially things in the to do column for the engineers to keep churning through. And so
Yep.
every 2 weeks, go through the effort to like throw out the old tickets that you don't care about, groom and plan some new ones, and just keep that work flowing. And that's just the job of like leadership essentially.
Sure. I would say the only advantage to having the point meetings is being able to know this ticket is too big, you've got to break it down. But I think some of that comes down to who is actually writing the tickets, because I've been on teams before where you have the stakeholder, it's a very tiny team. So you have either the
Mm,
stakeholder or like the product owner writing the tickets, and they really have no insight into the
ah,
type of work that's required. And so in that sense, you need that pointing meeting, or I guess you could call it the grooming meeting, where you're breaking those
right.
down. But like who on your team is writing? Is that the PM? Did they have a dev background to know, okay, this is like a 2-day ticket?
The
Who does all
way
that?
the way I view it is like the PM is kind of writing the epics. These are the big features we want to deliver. Boom, boom, boom. And then it's kind of up
Mhm,
to the tech leads or lead developers or whatever you want to call them, senior developers to be like, yeah, this will probably take like these 5 or 6 tickets to get done. And they just, they kind of write them in the meeting. They kind of just give them a one-line title and be like, cool, I'll add descriptions and like more later as it
mhm.
gets ready. But the idea is like that's how you kind of just plan out chunks where PM has only their vision at the epic level, and then you dive down to the next level.
Mhm. Where do you guys fit the designers in to the process?
We don't really have designers right now. There's been some
What?
changes. It's rough. It's rough going.
W
Yeah.
the It was interesting depending on which team I was on. So certain teams would write specific design tickets. And so I would try and work 1 to 2 sprints ahead of the engineer. So by the time they
Yes.
got ready to do the work, everything had been designed and approved. There were other teams
Yes.
that I worked on that would just kind of like shove my work into the existing tickets, which I mean, to me, it's fine either way. If I did that, then I'm just adding my assets directly into their tickets, which I
Right.
mean, I kinda did anyways, but I would just work with the PM to make sure that all of those pieces were in place by the time the engineers needed it.
But my take here is that design and engineering should not be considered separate entities where there is a handoff and then it's done. A team is a team. A designer needs to sit next to a developer who is all overseen by a product manager, right? Like you work together to get it done
Yeah,
because designer's going to design something and inevitably a developer's going to have a question or the PM's going to change a feature
yeah,
which needs more design and it that collaboration has to stay tight because the minute there's a handoff and somebody does one thing different than the box, that entire design file is trash because like somebody decided something needed to
they're
change
out of
and now
sync.
everything is
Yeah,
inconsistent. Yeah.
yeah. My favorite setup was I was working for a fine tech company. This was when I was at Zeal, so it was one of our clients, and we had a design triad that was part of that bigger triad that we're talking about. So the big triad we're talking about here is like your project manager, your developer, and your designer. Well, the design had a smaller triad where you had uh, basically a UI UX person, but we were also working with user research and user writers. And that was amazing working with a user writer because there's so many things that you don't think about when you're thinking about call to action and headings and all the psychology that goes into that. And because this was a
Yeah.
fine tech company, not only were they really attuned to the psychological, philosophical piece of it, but there were also legal requirements on things you could and you couldn't say. And so the writer really it was their job to make sure that all that worked and that it was with compliance. So they would have to go through their legal team to get all of the language approved.
Yeah, that is crazy the amount of like experimentation, research, analytics that goes into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Stripe was very into that. Like conversion rates are like the most important thing in the world. And
Yeah.
they were like min maxing that, like crazy.
Yeah, I loved it though. Like, that was so interesting to me, and we would do all these different flows and then do user research to figure out which one
Yeah.
was more efficient, and the flows would be at different processes, so sometimes we just test the design side of it, and sometimes we would implement it and then test that out with different flags or A/B testing, but one of th this is an actually a really interesting tidbit, and I'll throw this out there and then we can move on. But whenever we would do user research, we would test a selection group of 25 people, which sounds incredibly small. And it's like, you should have more than that, than just 25 people. But we found that that was the magic number because if we created a design that was inconclusive at 25, if we increased the pool and did 50 or 100, it would still be inconclusive.
Hmm,
25 was kind of our magic number. So
crazy. Yeah, Adobe did a lot more
interesting.
UX research
Yeah.
than Cloudflare, what I understand. But yeah, it's really cool those whole organizations that people are just dedicated to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of that got cut in some of the more recent,
Yeah.
tech layoffs and stuff like that, which is really unfortunate because it was just a great great way to work. I really enjoyed it. So, I know some people think of that as cruft and overhead, but I really do think that you get the best product when you're constantly talking to your users and getting that feedback.
Sweet.
All right. Well, let's move into the next segment of the show, which is our picks and plugs section, where we pick something that we like and plug something generally that we've worked on. So, Brad, what picks and plugs do you have?
I gotta go with the under desk treadmill. I mean, it was my
Ah,
birthday recently, so I got a lot of stuff, but the under desk treadmill, outside of the Switch, which I'm sure I'll go back and pick some Switch stuff later, but the desk treadmill is great. Put the link in chat here. Not a sponsor or anything like that,
yet.
but yet. Um, There was a bunch of them on Amazon, and I just decided to, like, kinda look at the price range and pick something that was, like, a little bit better, and I feel like it's pretty good. Without my noise canceling headphones on, it can seem loud, but every time I've, like, recorded myself or been in meetings, nobody can hear anything. Again, it syncs up all through the phone with the app, like, really nice. I would recommend this one. Pretty easy to move too. It's like 30 some odd pounds.
That's awesome.
So,
And then
that's
a
my
plug?
pick. Yeah, my plug, the new Cloudflare navigation is coming soon. Go to dash.cloudflare.com, look on the left side. Soon there's gonna be this notification that's like, "Hey, we have a new nav. Do you wanna use it?" "Yes," and then you opt into it. So, couple weeks, keep a lookout, and if you do use it and you have feedback, there's a link in the bottom left to give feedback, and we're very interested to hear what you have to think.
Goes directly to Brad's email.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be me handling it, so yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick, I don't think I picked this yet. If I did, it's good enough to pick twice. But we have not been super into YouTube TV. Maybe we're old like that. But with my kids, just you're not sure what ads are going to come up. You're not sure what video they're going to recommend next. But we found this show on YouTube that we all love. It's kind of over, but you can still go back and watch it. It's called 50 States in 50 Days with Ryan Trahan. Did I pick this?
You mentioned the YouTube series, and I started watching it, and it's great.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll pick a different
I
YouTube
I already
series.
know the ending, although I haven't watched it, but
Well,
it's
yeah,
been
yeah,
all
yeah.
over
Okay.
YouTube. Yeah.
So I'll talk about this is how much we love it. I'll go back and I'll pick another show that we've also been watching. But anyways, Ryan Trahan has been traveling around to all 50 states with his wife. And it's so much fun just to see the different Airbnbs that they stay at. They have this wheel of doom that adds this another layer of complexity to it where they could get split up. They could have to go into airplane mode, but it's just good, clean family entertainment. So we've been binging on that and really enjoying it. The other show that we've been watching is Mark Rober, which is another older YouTuber that we're just like now
Awesome.
watching, which is crazy. But my kids did it's called Encore. It's like a summer camp at their school during the summer. It's just a week long where they can take different classes. And my son Isaac was in the science class, and so they started watching a few of these Mark Rober YouTube videos, and then he's come home and binge watched on them. But he does some of the coolest science experiments, and like talk about getting your kids excited about science and math and research and all this stuff. They're really cool things. Like he goes in and explains how a Nerf gun works. And then he's on this kick to create the world's smallest Nerf gun where you literally have to have a microscope to be able to see it. He like 3D prints these little Nerf guns. It's
Wow.
so interesting. But then he'll also do things with explosions and trying to figure out, okay, how high can we explode something? Or he did one where he dropped a bunch of like these little tiny BBs all over this floor. And then you're basically skating on the floor just because of the way
Cool.
these little balls work. He did another one where he had a slinky and explains like this is how the slinky works. And he created these stairs to say, okay, if we create the perfect conditions for a slinky, how long can it walk down these stairs? And it's basically infinite. But it was so cool
Awesome.
for him to talk about the technology and the physics and the math behind all that. So, like I said, it's very kid friendly. He's also done things just to help kids that are like maybe struggling health wise. And so like coming along and getting them excited about the stuff and like featuring them on his shows. So just again, really good, clean family entertainment. So Mark Rober and Ryan Trahan.
Yeah, we watched Mark Rober's, egg drop one because our kids had to do the egg drop experiment in
Yeah.
school, and so
Oh,
we would
cool.
watch his and say like, "Okay, which approach do you like? What do you wanna do?" And, they'd pick what
Uh-huh.
their favorite way was and build that. So, yeah, he's got some awesome content. And
Yeah.
Ryan Trahan, his personality, like, within 5 seconds of him being on TV, I was like, "Oh, this guy's just like a good-natured, fun-loving human being." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's got that innocent vibe to him, and him and his wife
Yes.
are super cute and all that, so, yeah.
Yeah. And his humor is like point on point. It's so funny. Like just some of the dryness or his delivery on different things. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We really enjoyed them. We are probably about halfway. We didn't finish all 50 states. I know you could probably skip around, but we've been trying to watch them in order, so
Yeah,
it's been
like,
good.
my family doesn't watch a ton of TV together. Normally, like, I find, like, we're
Mhm.
out doing things, but we're like a family who wants to leave the house instead of be at the house, and when we're at the house
Yeah,
chilling, my wife and I just say, "Okay, kids, you can watch whatever you want," but we're
yeah,
transitioning, slowly as they're getting older and having more interest into being like, "What do we wanna learn about? What do we wanna sit down and watch together?" Because 'Cause they're at the
yeah,
point where they can watch things that we would find entertaining, so,
sure.
you're a step ahead of us, and I'm taking all your advice here.
Yeah, well, during the summer, we have a neighborhood pool, so it's like anytime after dinner, we just go to the neighborhood pool, and the
Yep,
great thing is, because it's late, you don't have to worry about sunscreen or anything like that,
yep.
but it's been so hot lately, it's, like, even miserable at the pool, and so that's when we've kind of pulled out YouTube after dinner and just tried to see what's on. The other thing, and I know I've picked this before, is, Lego Masters. We've loved watching that as a family. Yeah. Have you seen that?
Dude, I gotta start a note on this. This is so good. Lego
Oh my
Masters, that's
goodness.
awesome. We
So,
would love that.
yeah, with Lego Masters, they have different teams and they all have a challenge and they have to build around that challenge. And so they just released, and I say just, like I think they did a new season over the summer and they'll do different themed ones. So like if your kids like Wicked, there was a Wicked themed one. There was a Star Wars themed one because it has Ben Arment doing the uh, it's Ben Arment, right? Yeah. Nope, not Ben Arment, that's a different guy. What's his name? Ah,
I don't know the name.
of his last name. What is it? Shoot, it's not coming to me. Somebody in the chat. Uh, Give me just a second because this is gonna bug me. Where there's his face. Will Arnett. Will Arnett is the
Oh, yeah,
host.
Will
He was
Arnett,
the
yeah.
voice of Batman with, the Lego version of Batman. So they do a
Oh,
Batman themed show. Yeah. So,
awesome.
but yeah, Lego Masters is fantastic. We've really enjoyed that. Cool. Well, I know you have a hard stop today. Went over a little bit, but thanks everybody for listening. We always enjoy recording and just talking about the stuff that we're learning, and always enjoy having you guys around. But if you're listening in your podcatcher of choice after the fact, please leave a rating and review. It helps us find great guests and get sponsors and all the things. For now, that's all we've got. I'm going to go ahead and end it next week.